Hey everybody, welcome back. We're on another side-by-side interview. I am here with Mike Kaupe. He is currently serving as the pre-sales manager at Workday. He's been doing that for about 4 years.
Yep.
Before that, he was working at Ceridian. So he's been sort of in this, executive level HR community for a while. Beyond that, he's one of my closest friends. We've known each other for, maybe 15 years now.
Yes. Yeah.
Something like that.
Before I had gray.
Before he had gray hair, before we had kids.
Yes.
Mike, it is a pleasure to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so listen, we both grew up in leadership and read the books and went to the conferences and did the thing. And something that was said over and over again, I think it's time that we sort of kind of really look at it and figure out, is it true, and maybe is it still true? And one of those big things that we have been taught is that leaders are good, but managers are bad.
Yes.
And in the role that I get to serve in, I get to oversee a lot of really great leaders. And what happens in a growing organization is leaders tend to grow things. Their staff grows, their influence grows. And when your staff grows, a leader can overnight go from a leader to a supervisor. And one of the biggest deficiencies that I've seen in some leaders is this inability to make the transition from being a leader of one to a leader of a team. In other words, a manager. And I feel like we've done a disservice to management, to effective and powerful management, by saying leaders are good, managers are bad. So I wanted to talk to you about the case for managers.
Sure.
What can we do to help sort of round off the leadership that's out there and just really make a case for managers?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I actually struggled with this for quite a while. So, again, like you said, we kind of grew up, together in the leadership world where we've read the books, and we're still reading the books. We're still going to conferences. I mean, it's a lifelong journey, on being a leader. But, early on we were taught that, to be a good leader, that a manager is not the thing you want to be. Right. But over the years, I found that is not the case. I have found that you do need to be a good leader. But to be a great leader, you also have to manage the status quo. You have to be a good manager. And in the last couple of years, I recently looked at leadership and management, within two different paths that people have. And, either you're really good at one path and not good at the other, or you can be great at both. But you have to focus on both. So one being a thought leader. A thought leader being someone who leads a certain product area or marketing or attendance, church attendance or things like that. But not necessarily a people leader. And that's the other side of it, is being a people leader, having the influence, encouraging people that are either under you or across from you, or even up, right? How do you lead up in an organization, whether it be a business or a church, for-profit or non-profit? And in the past couple of years, I've noticed that you have to have both. You have to have leadership qualities, but you also have to manage the team. You have to manage those qualities in yourself. You have to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at. You have to understand your team, what they're good at and what they're not good at. What makes them happy? What gives them the passion to continue to do the job, no matter what it is, every single day? And so, yes, we grew up that way, thinking that, and now, I look at a case for management very similar to the case for leadership. You have to be a good manager in order to be a great leader.
So something you just said that I want to make sure everybody hears is you can be good at one and bad at the other.
You can.
Or you can be good at both, but you have to focus on both.
You do.
That's good,
yeah,
man.
I've seen, over my years where there is a leader who is really good at thought leadership. They're very creative. They're able to influence others, internally and externally on a marketing idea or a product or, something like that. But then I've also seen this same person or persons not be good at managing a team, where their team, they don't want to report to them. They have no influence on the team from a people leadership. Their team feels like they're not empathetic, that they do not care about them. And so to me, you have to focus on both thought leadership and people leadership. You have to manage things well to be a great leader.
That's good. So and in my opinion, when you're looking at a leader that's great in the inspiration, they're great in being a thought leader, kind of getting the wheels turning, but they fail on connecting with their team, then the way I look at it, then you have failed.
You have. Because here's the thing, you can only be so much, I would say, well, you kind of lose the effectiveness, in one or the other, if you are only good at one or the other. But to be effective for people or the thought leadership, you have to be good at both. You have to focus on both, because I can be great at being creative, but if I'm not focused on my team, right, and they hear my creativity, they hear what I have to say, that's not necessarily going to be the case where they're going to want to engage or do what I think is best. They're gonna do what they want to do, right? Which is fine, because being a great leader, a people leader or thought, you have to listen to your team. You have to understand, what they want, and you actually grow together. Yeah.
Now, the idea that a deficiency in one, a big deficiency in one, can actually hurt the other.
It can.
We don't hear that.
Yep.
You don't hear that. You hear, you just grow this one side of you, you grow this one part of you, and it works out. But I mean, that's something that I think people need to hear. I can be excellent at this one area, but if I am completely deficient in the other, what you're saying is I'm going to lose effectiveness.
You will. And I've seen it both ways, where I've seen where someone is a good people leader, or they manage the team well, or they manage their product well, but they're not really good at leading the team or the product into the next phase, right? Every company has goals.
Right.
They have short-term, long-term goals, and they're not necessarily good at leading into that next phase. Well, they don't necessarily attain the goal. Right. It hurts their goal. Now, where I've seen where people are great in both areas, they not only attain the goal, but every person on their team, even outside their team, feels like they've attained the goal themselves as well.
Gotcha. At the end of the day, effective leaders and effective managers, when you own both of those, the end result is you reach your goal. You accomplish what you set out to do.
That's right.
Got it, man. Well, here's I guess is the $1 million question. How do I grow in the other side? How do I grow in the other side? We're talking about growing as a manager. There are people that want to grow as leaders. There's people who want to grow as managers. But in this specific conversation, how do I, if I say I'm a decent leader, I influence people, whether it's positional or relational, I influence people, but I'm not really good at managing the process. I'm not really good at, you nailed it, I'm not good at empathy. I'm good at the target, but I'm not good at empathy. They don't feel like I care. Something you said when we were talking earlier is, if people don't feel like you have their best interest in mind, you've lost.
You've lost.
And that's what this is. So how do I grow in that area of management? How do I become a better manager?
This took me a while to get down as well. And it took me a while because I didn't realize, how intentional I needed to be at it.
Yeah.
And that's the key word, is you have to be intentional at both areas.
Gotcha.
And so I have goals that I set for myself quarterly, and then also yearly goals, and then long-term goals. And those goals surround both areas.
Yeah.
I have to be intentional at growing on both sides of the coin, right? Either people leadership or thought leadership.
Gotcha.
And they're very specific goals, and they're measurable goals, right? These are goals that, and the one key thing about these goals is they have others in mind. So, for example, my team that I support today, my goals surround their goals. They help me with my goals.
Yeah.
They keep me grounded. They influence me on how I am supposed to set the tone, but also how I manage the day to day. I am constantly asking my team, how am I doing? What do I need to do to get better?
Yeah.
I'm asking my boss, how, what am I doing? How do I get better? And then we also have what we call these skip level meetings. Right? Where I'm not just having a meeting with my boss, but I'm having a meeting with her boss and her boss's boss.
Gotcha.
So I'm going up in the organization to really get an understanding of, am I doing things right? Am I influencing the right way?
Wow.
And then on the other side of that, from a thought leader perspective, I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting insight into how am I doing at being creative. Am I not being creative enough? I'm not just asking my team or managers, but I'm asking people across the organization as well. So other pre-sales leaders in my organization, I'm constantly asking, what are you guys doing in your region? What are you guys doing in Germany that we're not doing here in the South?
That's
right?
Good. Yeah.
And vice versa. And we're sharing ideas. We're sharing how creative we all are. And it's not just my creativity, but it's my team's creativity. It's what we've seen, what we've learned. And so, to me, you have to be intentional at it, and you have to write it down.
Yeah.
My goals are written down. They're intentional at being, what do I need to do to get better in these areas? And then they're also not just written down and not just focused, but I can change them when I need to. They're not static goals.
Yeah, they're not in stone.
They're not in stone. These are goals that if I feel like this quarter I'm not doing so well in an area, or I figure out, hey, there's a whole nother area that I have not been focusing on,
right?
It's part of my goal. And I start writing it down to make sure I attain that goal.
That's so good. So it's not much different than how we grow as leaders.
It's not.
Because we ask those questions of our leadership, I feel like all the time. I hear, I want to grow as a leader. How do I be a better leader? People have asked me, to critique them or answer questions about their leadership. Very few times does someone say, how am I doing as a manager?
Yep. How am I doing managing the team? How am I doing managing this process? You've got to keep the management going. You got to manage the status quo.
Yeah.
You've got to manage the
somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. Do the task, make sure, things are getting done, and you have to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because if that slips, something else is slipping.
That's good. Last question is, if we are intentional about growing our management skills, we're reading the books, we're reading the blogs. One of the podcasts I listen to is simply called Manager Tools. I was a new manager. I didn't know a fancy word. I went on to iTunes and typed in manager, and then Manager Tools popped up. That sounds good. Yeah. That sounds like what I need. And I love it. It is one of my favorite and most real podcasts out there. So if you're watching this, hop over to Manager Tools. It's fantastic. If we are intentional about growing in our management, we're reading the books, we're reading the blogs, we're listening to the podcasts, we're allowing that part of us to grow. How do we know when we've done it? There's a lot of statistics about how do you know when you've got the right leader in the right spot. how do you know when you have hit a good stride and you're being an effective manager?
You know, I think everyone measures themselves differently.
Yeah.
I think I measure the different qualities of a leader, the different qualities of a manager versus thought versus people, differently. I think, for me, it's being consistent. It's being consistent at what we are doing. Being consistent at hitting goals, being consistent at hitting targets, all the while, though, making sure that I share, the love for my team.
Yeah.
I make sure I put them on a pedestal. I make sure that people know that they've done a great job. I make sure to give kudos and accolades to others across the organization who really deserve them. But also I encourage others, no matter what they do, I'm always encouraging. And to me, that you have to be consistent in that area. And that's what I think for me is being effective. Because I'm affecting not just a goal, a product, or a team. I'm affecting someone's life. I'm affecting how they live, their work-life balance, what they do, how they interact with their team and their products and their goals. It's just to be consistent, and I've told this to my team many times, that it's okay to be consistent with inconsistency.
Okay.
So, meaning I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to be successful at everything. I'm not going to be good at everything. But if I know that I'm not good at everything, and I know that I'm not going to be successful at everything, that I'm going to be focused on what I need to do to not just be successful, but to be significant.
That's good.
Right? It's not, and here's the thing too. I've seen where successful people, they're successful 1 year, right? I'm pre-sales. I'm in sales. They're successful 1 year because their success is based on money. But the next year they're not successful, and they're not significant. Where I've seen others do the same thing. They're successful 1 year, they're not successful the next year, but they're significant. They take the product, they take a team, and no matter that they're not consistent at being successful, they're consistent at being significant.
Got it.
Right? So to me, an inconsistency is only going to open my eyes to what I need to do better, and what I can be consistent at.
And this is an area that I feel like we've historically ignored, and therefore that's why there's such this wide range of inconsistency among leaders. I told someone this one time, is that people don't quit jobs because of bad leadership. They quit jobs because of bad management.
They do.
No one says, man, I can't stand that guy. He's the worst leader I've ever had. They say, no, I can't stand that guy. He's the worst manager I ever had. Mike, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully this makes the case for managers. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. For everybody watching, hopefully you're able to gain something from this, something that Mike has said helps you as you're leading his leaders. See you, everyone.